The electric vehicle charging sector, can it make money? Is it a viable investment? On the one hand, you've got startups like EVgo and ChargePoint, and they've got a lot of enthusiasm in their corner. On the other hand, you have the established energy companies like Exxon, BP, and Shell, and they come to the table with a bunch of advantages of their own. So who's going to win? Okay, how's this going to look 5, 10, 15 years down the road? We need to examine that because all that glitters ain't gold. Just because we're sitting here on the cusp of being able to redefine how we power our planet, that doesn't mean that every opportunity therein is going to be a profitable one. Some could be profitable in the extreme long term. Some could just, muddle along and not really ever do anything extraordinary in terms of profit potential and investment potential. And a lot of the companies represented are going to disappear and they're not going to make any money. So we need to examine this because we need to educate ourselves on what's actually going on, okay? And that will help us to make a better informed decision in terms of whether or not we want to invest in this industry right now or not. Hey, MCE crew, I hope your day is progressing profitably. Now, to be fair, I want to start out by saying, when Henry Ford invented the assembly line, when he started turning out Model Ts in whatever color you wanted as long as it was black, the power infrastructure, the gasoline stations, that infrastructure was non-existent, okay? And I say that to point out that this is not the first time we've had a technology develop before the underlying infrastructure to support it was available, okay? So I think that's what answers the chicken and egg question here. What will come first? The demand for the infrastructure and the ability to be able to take these cross-country trips, or the adoption of the actual vehicles? Which will come first? I think we're seeing it. We're seeing the adoption of the vehicles become more and more popular. You're starting to see more and more of them on the street. And behind that is coming the infrastructure to make those vehicles able to have an extended range. Now, one of the issues that we're facing here in America that the Europeans have actually kind of figured out, and it's something we need to figure out too, because until we do this, there's going to be a mishmash of technologies, and that's going to get in the way of us being able to just be able to go from New York to California without having to spend hours on end recharging. And that is the standardization of the actual interface that you use to recharge the vehicle. The European Union has settled on the CCS, or Combined Charging System Standard, which standardizes the interface. And if you want to know how important that is, imagine if every gas station you went to had a different nozzle, okay? Imagine how difficult and frustrating that would be to the end user consumer. So that's why the European Union has settled on the CCS standard. That's going to help them make big leaps in having this technology become more widely available. Now, in America, we're still dealing with several different formats and standards. We're having a format war right now. We've got Elon Musk's Tesla standard. We've got J1772, CHAdeMO. CHAdeMO stands for Charge to Move. And of course, we also use a CCS standard. But we need to come to a decision on what we're going to use so that if you have decided, again, to take that cross-country trip in your EV from Manhattan to Sacramento, every station you encounter you'll be able to charge at with no issues whatsoever. It'll be just like filling up at any pump at any station in America. So we need standardization. It's not there yet. I am surprised that thus far Joe Biden's infrastructure bill does not include any type of encouragement for a standardization body to take a look at this. Maybe some amendments will be proposed that will accomplish that. There's a reality with electric vehicles that doesn't exist with internal combustion engine vehicles when it comes to the ability to recharge. And this reality is going to siphon away some profitability from the EV charging sector. And that is the consumer's ability to recharge at home. Now, mind you, it is not a supercharge at home, not yet. I don't know if we'll ever see that type of technology in someone's home because it is energy intensive. However, you can recharge at a level 1 recharging standard. So the level 1 standard is the slowest standard. It uses a basic household 110 to 120 volt outlet. And you can get a 1.5 kilowatt to 3 kilowatt rate. This rate is going to give you 3 to 5 miles in range per charging hour. So depending on your travel habits and how you use your car, 3 to 5 miles per charging hour might be sufficient for you. You charge up overnight, it's quite conceivable that you could get 40 to 50 miles in range. And you're not bringing the car back at zero, so you're going to have some residual charge from the previous day on there. So that's going to be great for a lot of people who can just plug in at home. I can see a lot of apartments offering recharging stations. However, there's going to be a difficulty with that as well. We'll get into it in a minute. But that whole phenomenon of not having to go to the charging station is going to change the economics of this industry. Right now, you want to fill up your car, you got to go to the gas station. Even if you have gas laying around the property that you use for your tractor or whatnot, you got that from the gas station. That doesn't have to happen here. Now, with regard to charging up at an apartment building or even at an EV station, with the times that it takes to recharge, you're going to quite probably have cars queuing up and lines developing, especially in populated areas. This is going to be, a little frustrating for a lot of people. And that's going to be another thing that needs to be ironed out before this business can be seen as extremely viable. Can you imagine sitting in a line waiting for the guy in front of you to take 31 minutes to charge up? Even if they have entertainment and food in, a revised or updated Quickie Mart, that's not going to do it for you each and every time. Especially when you compare gas stations where you fill up, it might take you 5 minutes to get from an empty tank to a full tank, and then you're gone, okay? When's the last time you encountered a line at a gas station? I haven't in quite some time. Even when we had the gas shortage here earlier in the summer, I didn't encounter any lines. Okay, I did encounter situations where they didn't have any fuel, but no lines. Then there's the energy consumption that comes from one of these charging stations. This is from the Wall Street Journal. I'll link to the article. While utilities potentially stand to make money from selling more electricity, fast charging stations present new stress points for power grids. Some have at least one 350 kilowatt charger, roughly the power load of a grocery store, said Scott Barrios, a senior account manager at Entergy Corporation, working on electric mobility. The chargers, more powerful than cars can now accept, are being built to prevent sites from becoming outdated. Their power use for the minutes it takes to recharge a car battery is equivalent to a grocery store running all of its lights and heating or cooling systems. So we're going to have to see even more infrastructure in the background of the charging station, with the electricity companies, the providers, being able to handle these types of loads. And it does make me question, where are they going to get that power from? Because we're not there yet in terms of renewables. So where's that going to come from? I've always had the question about whether or not if I bought an electric car, would it be basically a solar or wind power car, or would it be powered by fossil fuels, coal and natural gas, which are still the leading sources of electrical energy we have in this country today. Now, that is slowly changing, but the question needs to be asked. With the 350 kilowatt charger, That's a lot. A grocery store with everything running, that's a tremendous load. And I can see how the electric company would make money off of that, but how would a charging station company make money off of that? Here's another point made by the Financial Post. Again, I'll link to it. Fueling cars and trucks has always been a low-margin business, with gasoline stations making much of their money from selling snacks, coffee, and cigarettes. The business is even tougher when it comes to EVs. Unless they live in dense cities like New York or San Francisco, drivers do the vast majority of their charging, again, at home. 80% of the people that have these cars right now are charging them at home. Their garage is their gas station. They use public chargers infrequently, with most vehicles offering more than enough range to complete daily errands without a top-off. The U.S. Department of Energy estimates, again, 80% of EV charging happens at home. So that sounds like the utilities will win. Your local gas and electric company, they'll win. That'll boost their profits. But what about ChargePoint? What about EVgo? What about the legacy energy providers like Exxon? Now, the startups do have different business models. ChargePoint, for example, they sell stations and offer operational support and consultation. They don't get paid from charging itself. A typical client of ChargePoint might be an apartment building or some sort of industrial park. If a particular station doesn't get a lot of use, well, guess what? ChargePoint, in that instance, they still get paid. But that company, that office park, that apartment complex, they still have to make the investment to get ChargePoint to come in and construct this infrastructure. And then I'm sure there is a ton of consulting fees that go along with that. And if you do that, you're going to have to be able to pass it on to your renters. That when you look out into the parking lot, if you don't see at least 50% EVs out there, then it's definitely not something that most property owners are going to incur the expense for right now. And it's funny because ChargePoint's CEO, a gentleman by the name of Pascal Romano, has said, I wouldn't want a driver as a customer because I think I'd starve to death. He went on to say, there's not a lot of money in electricity. That's why their model is not to sell the electric charge up directly to the consumer. Now, on the other hand, EVgo, they're making money directly from the recharge. That's their model. Shell and Tesla, on the other hand, are working on a scenario whereby the canopy roof of their recharging stations are filled with solar panels, and that solar energy is then converted into electrical energy that you recharge with. That's ideal if they're able to make that happen. I'm not sure that that technology is going to be right around the corner. And they'd have to come up with some sort of battery technology to store the energy on a cloudy day or at night. And I know that there are advancements in that field. Now, the biggest impediment to this and the biggest question as to whether or not these guys can really make money is the fact that people are charging at home by and large. So that's preventing them from having to use a charging station necessarily. If they go outside of their daily drive, their daily commute, then maybe. But their daily commute, which is what folks usually do, running errands on the weekends, that home charge is going to be sufficient for most people. So that's a whole lot different, or a saying that I really hate, but I'll use it here. It's a whole different kettle of fish than having to go to the gas station and pump up every single time you run out of energy. Okay, what do you think would happen to the gas station industry if you had a tank under your property and you were able to just top yourself off every evening? It would change the economic dynamics of that industry. And we're talking about EV charging here, and electricity is not necessarily the most, profitable business to be in. So who wins? Right now, the utilities, your local gas and electric company, they look like they're going to be behind the scenes raking in the most money from this until a situation can be developed whereby you're drawing in energy directly from solar. And even a lot of the utilities already have infrastructure of that nature. So right now, what are we dealing with? We're dealing with 80% of the people who are charging at home. They're not using a recharging station. We're dealing with a standardization war. We don't know what standard is going to be the winner in terms of the electrical interface to repower the car. And then we're dealing with a whole lot of different ideas on how to make money in the industry. Do you just build the stations? Do you sell power directly to the consumer? No one seems to have that figured out just yet. I don't care if they're a startup or the big guys. So we're in the Wild Wild West right now. I'm going to stand back and kind of see what happens, because I think we're way too early right now, especially in America, to be able to pick a winner, okay, or a group of winners, or a standard that's going to lead us in the direction of understanding what this is going to look like 5, 10, 20 years from now, okay? So do your due diligence. That's how I feel about it, and I'll talk to you soon.